Miss Gone Overseas was born in the early 1920s in her grandparents' house in a small Japanese mountain village. As was the custom, her mother always spent the last month of her confinements with her own mother. Her parents' village was somewhat larger. In summer, crops were tended. In fall, silkworms were fed. It was an orderly village life of hard work and seasonal festivals. Here she is on the lower right. There were 6 years of schooling for both girls and boys. One additional year was granted to those who excelled. Those who truly excelled and whose parents could afford it went on to more schooling, eventually becoming teachers themselves. In the late 1930s, her brothers were conscripted to serve in the Manchurian War. In this photo, they are still young boys in school uniform. The family prayed constantly for their return, as a farm cannot survive without strong young arms. In 1940, a marriage was arranged for her. Marriage to a much more prosperous family in a distant village. At her husband's house, the silkworms were raised in special barns and not up in the attic. At first, she helped with the silkworms, but later she was assigned kitchen duties. The household was not run by a mother-in-law, but by the older brother's wife. Through certain circumstances, she was sent, on her own, from that mountain village to the bustling city of Tokyo, and from Tokyo to the southern port of Nagasaki. It must have been a difficult transition for a country girl. She was then sent to the government's South Sea colonies aboard this ship. Also on the voyage was Kimiko, who became a special friend. Together, they embarked on a new life on a tropical island that is the setting for my book that tells that story. Listen now as Miss Gone Overseas speaks in her own words. Remembering back to the day we arrived, the ship coming closer to what we thought was another large cloud on the horizon, then the cloud lifting, and we could see towering peaks covered in vegetation so dark it seemed almost black, most forbidding looking. The town is less primitive than I expected. It has modern things like telephones, electric lights, and automobiles. The main streets are paved and lined with shops and eating places. There is even a department store where I bought this notebook, almost the same as those I lost. The Hifumi is a small house with only 5 rooms upstairs. Below is a Western-style parlor and a 12-mat room at the back that opens onto the garden. Then 2 wings, one with a kitchen and servant's room. In the other wing are Mrs. Okata's room and her office. The garden is narrow and rather dull, a tangle of plants I do not recognize. Behind the back fence is the water catchment tank, and a place laundry is hung, and where wood is kept for the heating of the bath. Yesterday, Kimiko and I walked to the end of Namiki-dori, then past the agricultural station and beyond before turning back. Kimi-chan is the youngest of all of us here. Like me, she comes from the country and remembers the same childhood things, the harvest festivals, and capturing fireflies on summer nights. I have been remembering how relieved my parents were when I married. Though I was not yet 18, the village was beginning to whisper that I was an old maid. I remember how proud my parents were that they had made such a good marriage for me. But nothing has turned out as they expected. How unhappy they would be if they knew.